Hi, I'm Doug Metzger, your narrator, and in this video you'll see how to make handles for knives, custom knives. A basic shop would require a Delta sander, basic tools like a drill and a polisher. First, what you need to start with is a good knife blank. You have full tang knives and what are called hidden tang knives. We sell an S-Series knives, which is a high quality 440C stainless steel. And right here you'll see that these are full tangs, and you need to pick a good quality knife. Here are what are called hidden tangs. This is what's called the guard, or the pommel is on the end. All these are available in our website. The next thing you choose is the type of handle you want to use. Now the easiest type of handle material is bone. This is bone. And also stag, and you have buffalo are the easiest ones to start with. Wood is actually a little bit harder, and pearl and abalone is a little bit harder than that. And I would recommend starting off with the bone handles. Bone is very forgiving as you shape it. If you make mistakes on it, it is very easy to get the mistakes out. For our example here, we're going to use bone handles with one of our knives. Our knives already have the bolsters attached. It's already sharp and polished. But for this example, we want to start with probably the easiest handle material to use, which is a bone. You'll take this knife and you'll end up looking like this. First, after you choose the right bone, if there's a bolster on there, as you see in the front, right here, that's the bolster, you want to take the bone handle and shape it so it becomes flush with the bolster off handle, and you do that by sanding. Here I'm just making a ink mark to see how much bone I want to take off so I can get it flush with the bolster. Also, when you flip it around, you can outline how much bone you're going to take off. This excess right here below the handle, you just want to cut it off with a saw where I have the X marked. And you can do it one side at a time. We're going to start on this side first and make sure we shape it so it's flush with the bolster. Now in this example, as we have it shaped so as it can be flush with the bolster, once you have it set in the tang, where you put the handle on, is fully covered, we're going to take our adhesive. And this is a special adhesive that's used actually in woodworking and furniture industry. We found great success with working with knives. It sets up in about 15 seconds. It's very good. So once you have your handle ready to put onto your blade, go ahead and put the adhesive onto the tang. Unlike epoxy, you don't have to put a lot in excess. This stuff will set up in 15 seconds. So once you're ready, you have enough on there, you press down firmly. Now you can use clamps. A lot of times I just hold it tight with my fingers, but I like to use these little spring clamps that work great to set it up in place, as I'll show you. Now you'd want to use these especially if you're using epoxy. It takes a little longer to cure. But if you're using our stick fast, again, it'll set up and you're actually ready to start sanding within a minute. That's what it looks like on the other side. Now remember, you do one side at a time. Now the sander I'm using here is a 1-inch by 42-inch long belt sander. It's by Delta. I recommend it as a great workhorse as a starting sander. You can usually get them for about 125 to 135 delivered. What I recommend is doing a Google search and find the 1 by 42 Delta sander. Now what you do is you're sanding the bone and you're using the metal, as you'll see, as the guide. You go ahead and start off with like a 150 grit on the sander, but you sand the bone flush with the metal, as you'll see right here. And so the metal itself becomes the guide for the sander. Now if you notice on the sander, I'm not using the part with the metal backing. I'm actually using where the sander is a little more flexible. And it's more working with the sander and a little bit of finesse with the sander of where you get the desired results. Again, you work it right down to the metal, flush with the metal. Now you're not going to shape the handle, you're just trying to get it where the handle is flush with the spine, and in this example right with the belly. As you can see right here, it's flush all the way around. Now in this example, what I do is I'll set it in a vise, and I'm using just a hand tools. This is a Dremel, but you can use a drill press, and on the side that the handle is not on, you use the holes as your guide for the drill. And later we're going to put pins in this. This can easily be done with tools at home. As you get a little bit better, you want to invest in a drill press. And there you go. Now we repeat what we did on the one side on the other side. Go ahead and use your epoxy or your stick fast. Now remember, with stick fast, it sets up in about 15 seconds. You won't be able to get it off the blade if you put it on wrong. So again, once it's set in place, you can use the clamps to let it cure. Especially when you use the clamps if you're using epoxy. Epoxy takes a little bit longer. And usually you like to let it sit up, even if it's 5-minute epoxy, you usually like to let it sit up for a day before you go back and do it. That's why we like the stick fast. It's almost immediate as far as going right to production. Within a minute you can start sanding. Now again, all we're going to do is take the other side down and take the sander right flush up against the metal. Again, starting off with like a 150 or a 180 grit. We're going to change the belts to get a finer when we start doing the shaping. But this is to get it right up against the metal. Don't worry about scoring the metal right here, because in the polishing we're going to take any scoring out of the metal when we put it on the polishing wheel. So we get all the scratches out in the polish. Okay, now for doing the rods, what we're going to do is we're going to take a rod. After we've drilled the holes through the other side, we put the rod from one side to the other. And just so it pokes out on the other side, you go ahead and snip off the excess. Now what we've done is we've used the handle, the holes on one side of the handle as the drill guide for the other side. And you just repeat over and over again. Make sure put the adhesive in. Now in this part, this is how you get what looks like a perfect pin fit. You actually sand the rod flush with the handle. And now we're going to get into the shaping part. Now depending on how many pins or rods that you have, you want to not go heat up one at a time through the sanding process. You want to sand each one, go on to the next, then on to the next, a little at a time each time, so as not to overheat the pins and possibly crack your handle, called heat fractures. So you just take your time, and then once you get it flush, you start turning back and forth, just rotating as I am showing you in this picture. This is how you shape the handle. It's actually a very easy process. Always want to be safe, have goggles on. Generally you want to put a piece of masking tape on the blade itself on the edge so as not to cut yourself. But actually the hardest or the most dangerous part in the process is actually in the polishing. This is actually quite easy in the shaping. And you just go back and forth in one spot so as to mark it. Now in the polishing, I used a basic grinder, and I took the grinding wheels off on this Ryobi you can get at any hardware store. It's real inexpensive. And put the cloth wheels on. And usually most stores will sell the rouge. It's a 3-stage rouge, one for metal, and then for softer metals, and then also high polish. Now in this process, and what's fun about using bone, is that it'll polish up bright like it were ivory. And it's real easy. Now what we're doing is we're polishing the brass pins as well as the bone at the same time. And what we're doing is we're getting the scoring out. Scoring out of the handle itself, as well as the spine and the belly of the blade. Now remember, this is the most dangerous part of the whole process. The polisher, it has a tendency to grab, and as it grabs, it can pull that knife out of your hand. So you need to firmly hold the knife. If a knife maker gets cut, this is usually where he gets cut. And it's just working the wheel in different ways for the spine or for the belly and for the handle. As you can see in this picture, we're taking care of the scoring right from the metal. And so what I'll do is I'll start off with the metal is to get the scoring out of that first. And then you will start working the handle itself. And again, with bone or antler, it polishes up bright. And there you have it. You've made yourself your first knife.
Hello, Doug Metzger again. This is an extra on Hidden Tang knives. A Hidden Tang knife has a post in the back, as this is example, and it goes inside of the handle. And the handle that we chose to use in this illustration is a stag handle. It's actually an easy knife to do. What you start with in this example is the stag. And on the stag, what I'll do is I'll draw 2 little holes, not next to each other, and what those are going to be my drill guide. I drill those 2 holes down to the depth and the length that I need for the tang. And then I use the drill bit like a router and square off the hole. After I have the right depth in the handle, I'm going to now use the Hidden Tang, and in this illustration we have one that has an anchor hole. Now the anchor hole is just a hole at the end of the tang itself, and what it does is it gives me more stability when finishing off the knife. I put the tang up against the antler and measure it out to where the hole should be made and make a little mark. I go ahead and drill the hole and make everything fit, make sure that the rod will fit through the hole, and then in the final stage I'll use epoxy. You always use epoxy in doing hidden tangs because it acts as a filler, and with the anchor hole it just gives it that much more stability. Again, hidden tangs are probably the easiest knife to work, whether with antler or with wood, and it ends up coming out real pretty. It's a great one to start with. And you can sand and finish and polish the blade just like you did with the full tang. And that concludes that of the hidden tang.